The mysterious disappearance of Steady Eddie on the Appalachian Trail. So today I'm going over the case of Robert Kerker, also known as Steady Eddie, his mysterious disappearance, and also a very similar case. And then at the end I'll be covering some things we need to know in order to keep ourselves safe. And I'd say the end of this video is the important part. I don't want you to mysteriously disappear. I want you to get back safely. There's always some risk, so could be a lot of risk associated with hiking remote areas, but there's things you can do to minimize that risk. And with knowledge, at least, you can know what you're getting into and decide if you want to expose yourself to that level of risk, or what you can do to mitigate the circumstances, or if there's certain times and seasons where you'll just sit it out. So to get started, I'll just start at the very beginning. This is an initial press release by the Vermont State Police, and they wrote, Vermont State Police are looking for a missing 67-year-old man who was last seen July 9th, 2023 at the inn at Long Trail in Killington. Robert Kerker was reported overdue by his family to the National Park Service on July 24th, 2023. The Vermont State Police were contacted on the evening of July 24th to assist with locating Kerker. He is hiking the northern half of the Appalachian Trail, and his intended direction of travel was north. He was checking in with family weekly, which he'd not done since July 9th. Robert Kerker is 5'10", weighs 150 pounds, has short white hair and a beard. He goes by the trail name Steady Eddie. A photograph of him hiking as he crossed into Vermont on the Appalachian Trail is attached. And back then they were saying anyone with information was asked to call the Vermont State Police. But there's updates since then. And one of the updates, Kerker was described as an experienced hiker who began his trek on the Appalachian Trail on June 1st in Bear Mountain, New York. And then further information started to come in from the public, and the Vermont State Police continued to give us updates. And they wrote, crews had focused their efforts Friday on the brook after a witness reported seeing Mr. Kerker at the Stony Brook shelter on the Appalachian Trail the night of July 9th. The witness said severe rain and flooding that struck Vermont starting July 10th had elevated water levels on Stony Brook and made the trail's crossing of the stream dangerous. Mr. Kerker is not known to have been seen again following that encounter. Then another update. At about 2:30 p.m. Friday, July 28th, search crews located Mr. Kerker's body along the Stony Brook in Stockbridge, about 1.5 miles downstream from where the trail crossed the brook. So I've hiked in Vermont. I'm more familiar with a lot of trails in New Hampshire and Maine, but I've been in that general area, and a lot of it's very similar to where I grew up. I'm not remembering that particular trail, if I have hiked it. But a lot of these streams and even the creeks can have a low water level, for example during the summer, particularly if it's a dry summer. Some of the creeks can even completely disappear. But then there's other times, particularly in the spring, after a lot of snow melts up higher in the mountains, and then that water comes rushing down, or even other times of the year during rain. You can have flooding to where this unimpressive stream or even a creek becomes dangerous. And a lot of the creeks in areas like that, they don't have a muddy bottom because at certain times of the year it becomes a rushing torrent that scours away most everything right down to the rocks, which is usually, if you saw it dry, you'd call it a boulder field. And a lot of these rocks are rounded because at times they're being pushed by the strength of the current downstream, and they're rolling. A stream crossing can be dangerous any time of the year. But then if you have just a little bit of water, knee deep or not even up to your knees, but it's moving past quickly, very, very strong, and it can knock down a fully grown adult. But you add to that slipperiness of algae or whatever's on the rocks, and you add to that under the water, which you might not even be able to see, the visibility of where you're putting your feet might be limited, and also that it might be rolling and shifting when you're trying to put your foot down on it. Okay, you can easily fall, and the greatest danger, I would say, is hitting your head, because even if it wasn't a rushing torrent and I slip, I hit my head, if I knock myself unconscious, that can be it, and just a tiny bit of water. Doesn't have to be deep. My airways are covered, right? I'm alone and unconscious or unresponsive. That could be it. But if it is a rushing torrent, there's rocks and boulders. There can be fallen logs, and if you get swept away, you can be hit against these things, and it's damaging your limbs. And also it can be cold, particularly in the spring when there's actually melted snow and ice. You're like an ice water. But even in other times of the year, in the White Mountains and here, Green Mountains, there's that factor too. You're cold, just very, very dangerous. The other case I'd like to mention is Ian Obrien. In my mind, this is a similar case because he had a solo hiker who was experienced, wasn't a new hiker. Both of these people were very experienced hiking and being in the outdoors, but they went hiking alone and just suddenly disappeared. It was mysterious circumstances, people would say, but how they went missing is similar. So Ian Obrien, he was 28 years old, just suddenly disappeared. So the authorities went out and looked for him, and eventually that official search was called off. So then family members organized a search, and they had a lot of people and were very carefully looking that area. It was on Hesperus Mountain in Colorado, and the young man had epilepsy, so that's what people thought had happened. But then eventually the family called off their search. But I'll put the link in the description. There was another YouTuber, William, at Cold Case Cause, and he made a prediction where the remains will be found, because he was expecting that the cause of the disappearance was accidental drowning, which it was. And I don't know Colorado. I don't know anything about that area, but this person does, and knew that there was flooding, and he knew where Ian had parked his truck, so what his general path would be to the top, and how basically he would have to come down. Included crossing of the West Mancos River. And what happened was that water levels had rose 3 to 4 feet, so the area where the remains had stopped moving from action of the water, the area of the remains was basically in an area impossible for anyone to find. It would have been dangerous to have searchers go into that area. They'd have to be going into the water in dangerous conditions, so it wasn't done. So then 2 people fishing just happened to be in that area fishing in the West Mancos River. They found him. So in relation to these cases, there's 3 things I'd like to go over. The first is the danger of water crossing, even if it's an unimpressive creek or brook, can be dangerous, and particularly during times of flooding. So maybe you've hiked that same trail at a different time and it was just a little trickle, but this time it can be a torrent. And I've already gone over some of the dangers of water crossings. Just be aware. So that's one. Second is the danger of hiking alone. Both these cases was a person alone. If I'm crossing a brook that's turning into more like a raging river, actually if I had a friend with me, maybe he'd say don't do it. You got 2 heads now, you have 2 chances to think right. Okay, but let's say I'm alone. I'm crossing that. I become incapacitated. It's just me. Very dangerous. I likely don't make it. If I have a friend, just one friend, it makes a world of difference. More is better, but 2 people, much more safe than 1, in my opinion. Because different dangers we face along the trail. Water crossing is just one of them. Okay, and 3, age and medical conditions. In these cases, both these cases we covered today, they were alone, so we don't know what happened. In the first case, did being a senior citizen, was that part of what caused Steady Eddie to disappear? We don't know. In the second case, the man was younger, but he had epilepsy. Did that play a role? We're not sure. But in each case, we have to make personal decisions when we go out there. You know, none of us are getting any younger. I'm getting to an older age myself. It's around the time to start thinking, you know. Men my age, a lot of them, God forbid, have a cardiac event. It's one thing if I'm at home with loved ones, they call. If I'm way out in the woods alone, that might be it. So each person has to decide for himself or herself what age you are, what conditions you have, or know that you have. I know you can always go to the doctor, have regular checkups, and have some sort of professional window into your health and know, and then decide before you go out. But that's up to you. These all personal decisions. I'm not the arm twister. Just trying to encourage thought so that you can make your decisions. You know, personally, I want to live before I die. Of course, I'm looking forward to eternal life, but that's another story. But as far as life here, there's a lot of things I wanted to do and experience. And at this point in my life, at this age, I've done basically everything. You know, there's more to do, but I'm just saying I've covered the bases, the milestones I wanted to reach. For me, I've accomplished those, and I've gone out and lived a lot of life. You know, Ian was young, and I'm not a family member. I didn't know him personally. He was a friend of a friend, but he knew he had that condition. So for me, I just try to put myself in a somewhat similar situation, because I had a loved one that died relatively young. I mean, he didn't reach being a senior citizen yet. He wasn't a child or teenager, but he had epilepsy, and I think he kind of knew that maybe his lifespan, he had some accidents and things, maybe he knew that his lifespan wouldn't go to very advanced age. So for me, in that sort of situation, another medical condition where I thought, well, maybe my lifespan might be shorter, then just me personally, I might be trying to fit as much as I can into that time that I had. That would be just me, but of course a very personal choice. You know, it's something we have to all make for ourselves, because, you know, there's always going to be risk outside, particularly along the trails, particularly if you go out alone. And then, like, I like to bushwhack and go to remote areas alone. There's risk in that. So just, I hope you keep joining me, particularly if you're less experienced out in the woods, or if it's something hiking or something outdoors or remote, or something you're thinking about getting involved with, a hobby you're thinking of pursuing. Please keep coming back. And if you have some experience or a lot of experience in the outdoors, keep coming, because I really value the comments. And I ask you to comment here. We've always had really a lot of engagement. I believe we're helping people. Personally, I think we're saving lives, keeping people safe out there, and actually that we've saved lives here. So thank you guys. I'm going to sign off. Hope to see you again soon. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more. The former things have passed away. Revelation 21:4.